we'll move on to The House of the Devil from 2009, which is a film set in the early 80s about a struggling college student who takes on a strange babysitting job that coincides with a full lunar eclipse. But hey, she needs the money, and she's desperate, but soon she discovers a more sinister side to the whole situation. I don't want to go into too much more because it might spoil the movie. This is a movie that I kind of blind bought it on Blu-ray not long after it came out, and it's just one of those movies that I think it was available in a specific country and it was nowhere else, and a few people said something about it and I went, okay, I'll just, take a chance on it. Overall, I like this movie. It's one of those movies that tries to present itself as if it was actually filmed in the early 80s. Like, it's got this kind of like grainy type look to it, and obviously it tries to play some older type music along with it, even to its title cards and the way it presents itself overall. It does a really good job of actually making it look like, hey, this could be a movie that was made 30 years ago. And I guess the other side to it is that it's a very slow movie. It moves very slowly. Usually when a movie moves that slow, that tends to take me out of it. For some reason, this particular movie, the time seems to fly by for me. I don't know exactly why. It's not like anything major happens in the first, hour, 10 minutes maybe to the movie, except for one kill. Outside of one kill, there's not all that much that happens. She applies for a babysitting position, she goes, she speaks to this old couple. When I say it like that doesn't sound like anything all that exciting. But I don't know, it's partly the style, plus some of the characters, like Tom Noonan. There's something a little off about his character. There's obviously something off about his supposed wife in the movie. It's just these little details that seem to make the movie interesting. And then it goes to some crazy places towards the end.
Yeah, so I actually watched this one for the first time today, and I honestly didn't really know that much about it. I was familiar with Ty West, the director, who did movies such as The Roost from 2005 and Cabin Fever 2. So I was interested to see how this movie went. I've heard somewhat positive things about this. I really enjoy the aesthetic. Like you say, it looks like it would be perfect in the late 70s, early 80s type thing. They did really well with the camera work and everything to make it look authentically from that period. And they also have music throughout the movie, which is formerly 80s stuff. So I really enjoy the aesthetic of it. And the story up to a point is, I think, decent. I do like the sort of mystery surrounding the whole babysitting job that she gets. But at the same time, it's like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie when we finally get something a little more concrete than just a few moments of violence. And while I thought plenty of the stuff that happened before was fine, this is a scene in which she's listening to headphones on cassette play, just dancing around the house to music. It's fun, but at the same time dragging out it's a slow burn movie, so dragging it out that long, like an hour 10 minutes, it's a interesting choice. The unfortunate thing is I wouldn't even care about that if I actually really liked the final 20 minutes, and I don't. I was pretty sure that's where the story was going, but once we got there, a lot of stuff along those types of lines, and I don't want to say too much, because you should really watch the movie for yourself if you haven't. But the way they sort of conclude the story, I just personally don't care for, and I never really have. Those types of horror movies aren't high on my list of enjoyment. So I was I mean, I wasn't really disappointed because I knew it was coming, but because of that, I didn't enjoy the movie quite as much as I was thinking I might when I was just halfway through.
A funny thing, when you mentioned how she was putting on the headphones, dancing around, well, earlier in the movie we see that, she eventually squeezes a lot of money out of this babysitting job. She manages to get like $400, and as she's dancing around in the house, she accidentally knocks over some sort of antique or a vase or something like that, and breaks it. And immediately I thought it'd be so funny if Tom Noonan came back and was like, "That was worth $400," and then he just takes the $400 back. That would have made for an incredible moment in the movie. And then you cut to credits. But all jokes aside, look, I wasn't exactly sure where the movie was going, even though if you pay attention to the very first, it says a few things before the movie starts at the beginning, something about satanic cults. I can't remember exactly what it was. But obviously, if you remembered that part, you kind of know at some point it's going to go into that territory. But or at least when I first watched the movie, I either missed reading that, or I just never paid enough attention to it to connect that that's kind of what it's building up to. And, I mean, I always find cults somewhat creepy. To be honest, more the straight religion cult types, like, end of the line, that type of thing. I find that more creepier than this, but, it's still a bit different to everything that I usually see. In fact, I actually prefer the first hour to the movie to the last 20-30 minutes or whatever, however long it goes for. Not that I dislike the ending, I just feel like the movie's stronger points, like you said, the aesthetic. So the style of the movie is a big plus to me, plus some of the characters. Just Tom Noonan, I mean, he's an actor that I like, and he does a pretty good job at selling a guy who appears to be fairly nice, but, there's something a bit off about him. And his wife, she was somewhat creepy, I thought, like before anything goes down. Yeah, so all those things just help to make the time fly by, even though technically nothing was happening. Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't really have too much else to say, but I did notice your favorite go-to public domain movie was being watched on TV.
Yes.
So you must have appreciated that.
More than you know. And actually it's somewhat disappointing because this is a, well, I can imagine this is a slightly higher budget movie. So it's not like they had to go that route if they didn't want to. So, yeah, I just, again, I get that it's in public domain, just leave it alone.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much the budget was for this one.
Looks like it was about 900,000, which is an estimated budget, which, isn't nearly as high as, like, your typical Hollywood might have, but
I would consider that on the lower end.
if it's over like 100,000, you probably don't need to be showing Night of the Living Dead in your movie.
Okay. I'm sure that Shadow Zone movie, which used it, was well over 100,000.
That was a TV movie, so technically it's different. But I'm very picky about what I am okay with. I was going to ask, are you familiar with the movie? I think it's from 2008. Called Babysitter Wanted.
It sounds familiar. I think I might have watched it around the time it came out, but I don't recall it.
Because when I started watching this one, I was almost automatically reminded of that one, and it goes a different direction, though there are quite a few similarities between the two. And I have to say, the more I got into this movie, it was reminding me of some like the more, I guess, satanic 70s movies. This one being I don't know if it's necessarily obscure, but I don't hear that many people talking about it. A movie titled Warlock Moon from 1973. Especially the ending of that movie and House of the Devil somewhat similar awesome. So I did think that was interesting. And whenever a movie like this can, almost beautifully emulate movies from like the 70s and 80s, it's always a really nice accomplishment. I guess my main issue with this one has to be that I just don't know if the build up is entirely, well, let me rephrase. I just think the ending is entirely worth the build up. If there's more of a oomph at the ending, I might be more okay with it. But like I said, I wasn't particularly shocked by anything we saw at the end, and especially like the final scene. Just like that one line that the nurse says, like, "Oh, that's so shocking! I definitely didn't see that coming."
Yeah.
Even though I pretty much did from when she woke up, but it's just one of the things where if you know what's going to be happening, it still might be okay, but there wasn't enough, I guess, new powerful scenes in the last 20 minutes to really make it worth it. And I guess that's my main issue with this. I still think it's a well-made movie, and I think the main actress, I think it's Jocelyn Donahue, I think she did a really good job in her role. But I just don't think it's a great movie, which given everything they had to work with, I think it's just somewhat disappointing.
That one gunshot kill was pretty epic, though.
Yeah, that was. See, actually, and that's another thing. We never really learned much about the individual who did that. I mean, most of the information we learn is like from your favorite homeboy, what's his name? Noonan?
Tom Noonan. He's a bad guy in RoboCop 2, by the way. We need to watch that at some point.
Indeed, and actually, now you mention it, I did like his performance too. Very soft-spoken individual. I feel like if I was, the one getting into that babysitting job, I would have asked some more questions and before accepting. But I get it, she needs some money, so, by all means, take the job. But I just wish there was more power at the end of this, and it's still a movie worth seeing, but I definitely feel like they could have changed it around just a little, and it could have been a bit better.
That one scene where the blonde pulls over to have the cigarette in her car, and the guy pops up out of nowhere, which is pretty funny. She's like, "Where did you come from?" Like, he just comes out of nowhere. But there's one thing they say in their dialogue that just it always cracks me up when. So after he lights her cigarette, he's kind of just standing there at her door, and he says something like, "Geez, it's really freezing out here tonight." And she kind of looks at him, and she's just like, "Okay," like he's angling for her to invite him into the car, or her response is kind of like, "Where are you going with this?" I don't know. It's just such a simple thing, but it always cracks me up.
And actually, on a related note, I wish that that character had actually stayed with the main character. I mean, if you're getting $400, you can give like, 100 of that. She might not even need any of the money, but I wish she had more of a role in this movie than what she did, because I actually really liked her, and I found her somewhat more interesting than the main character herself, to be honest.
Yeah. There's a pepperoni pizza obsession in this movie too. There's like a scene earlier, and then she also has one later. So,
well, like he says, "Are you college kids like pizza?"
Yeah. Hey, pepperoni pizza's pretty good, but it doesn't need to be an entire character in a movie. Yeah. So, look, I enjoy this movie, and a big part of that is just its style, the way it's shot, the music. It just feels like a movie that is actually from, or at least for the most part, from the early 80s. And that's a big thing for me. Yes, it's a bit slow, but that time goes by pretty quick. The ending isn't great, but to me it's acceptable. I'm fine with it. I do wish the ending was a bit better, but it is what it is. So I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10, and I like to watch it, every few years. I have a decent enough time with it.
Yeah, so like I said throughout, I think the movie looks really nice. I really like what they're going for. The aesthetics, everything in it's wonderful, aside from aspects of the story. It was a mixture of like really solid for most of it, but then the ending was just somewhat of a letdown. So I'm just giving this one a 7 out of 10. So, which is again my average rating. So I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. It's an okay movie. And like I said, if you haven't seen it, you should probably watch it at some point. But I wouldn't go in anticipating being blown away because you might just not be.
Actually, one thing that I was going to say, another thing, and I don't know if this does anything for you. The old couple in that movie, they had some candy on the table. It looks like that classic old person type candy. I guess you're not familiar with it, but like back when I was a kid, old people always had this type of candy sitting on like their coffee table or somewhere in their house, and I don't know. It's just another thing that kind of amuses me. Anyways, you can move on.
Okay.